Gumball has a puppet miniseries? In the later half of The Amazing World of Gumball's 5th season, there was an episode released that was a bit different from your average Gumball episode, but also didn't necessarily stray too far away from what Gumball is. Of course, the episode I'm referring to being the episode titled The Puppets. And I say it's a bit different as the episode's plot quite literally leads to all the characters being puppets, and some being, well, extremely creepy puppets. And if you didn't know, this episode is actually a collaborative project between both the studio behind Gumball as well as the team behind the creepy and yet amazing and insanely popular YouTube series and TV show Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. It's a very unexpected collab that honestly just really works. The Puppets follows Gumball and Darwin in the attic where they have to put all the toys that they no longer play with, at first planning to get rid of them and clear the attic, but when Darwin finds his 3 puppets in a box named Grady, Frank, and Howdy, he immediately wants to play with them again. Gumball tries to get him to take them off, but the puppets begin to attack him, and the Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared side of this episode is instantly shown. Gumball then throws the puppets away, but then later that night, they rise from the trash can and head straight back inside their house. And then as Gumball heads downstairs as he was hearing strange noises, he then sees them destroying his game console, as the puppets then say that Darwin is in their world now and that he has to come and play if he ever wants to see him again. And so Gumball awakens Grady, who then takes them into their world, instantly changing the entire animation style of the episode to a way more fitting style to Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. And then as they begin to walk towards a house where Darwin apparently is, we then see Darwin, who's just straight up in a Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared episode, with the puppets now scarily big and singing a creepy song saying that more or less they were going to force him to have fun with them forever. The music then progressively began to become louder and faster, which is usually when dark things begin to happen in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, but thankfully Gumball walks through the door interrupting them. But Howdy then comes in as well and reveals that he has also been luring Gumball here, as this was also planned by all of them in order for them to get revenge for being played with like toys, saying that they're gonna make them do things like dance, fight, cover themselves with worms, eat toenails, and make them bend to the point where they break. But Gumball and Darwin then more or less just straight up kill the puppets and are set free. But when they get back, we see them at a garage sale for their toys, where the puppets are then taken by a new kid who is definitely not gonna get murdered. For an episode of Gumball, this was actually pretty terrifying. But yeah, the animation style that they changed to once entering the puppet world, and really just these puppet characters becoming more or less actual Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared characters with incredibly creepy voice lines, songs, and all, just honestly made this episode genuinely one of the coolest in the entire series. And well, if you didn't know, or at least I didn't know just before deciding to make this video, is that there actually was an entire mini series containing 13 short episodes that are actually based directly within the puppet world from this episode, as well as worked on by the same people who worked on this episode titled Waiting for Gumball. The first 5 shorts follow the puppets from the episode, Frank, Grady, and Howdy, and gives us more of an insight on what exactly these guys got up to after the events of the puppets, with the first short being about Frank bothering Grady and Howdy, saying that he's bored, being just extremely annoying, and whilst doing so, we actually get to see Howdy painting a picture of Gumball and Darwin. But eventually, Grady and Howdy say that they'll help him, and we even get a short song from Frank about boredom whilst they do so, which I honestly didn't expect, but nonetheless, Grady then continues to say that he's bored before then revealing that actually he isn't bored and is actually just sleepy. And so they tell him to go to sleep, and then he just knocks out as the song about boredom from earlier then plays again, but this time being about his sleepiness. The amount of little bits of just extra effort put into this short, with them at least acknowledging that they clearly somewhat miss Gumball and Darwin, as well as also just made full-on songs even if they have rather simple lyrics, still just honestly makes this something special. But the second episode follows Frank and Howdy playing video games before Grady gets mad at them for letting their house become a mess and tells them to clean it up. But whilst cleaning, Grady stumbles upon this weird plant which he then just falls in love with, as we then get a montage of the two hanging out with this upbeat, whimsical background music before we actually take a turn to Grady, who whilst cleaning stumbles upon a picture of Gumball which he sighs at before saying good times. But for whatever reason, Grady then also becomes attracted to this plant, which then causes him and Frank to start fighting, but then the plant just comes to life and completely rejects them both. As they then pretty much go back to normal, with Howdy and Frank continuing to play their game, as Grady then just goes to sleep, realizing that the game they're playing is terrible. The plot of this one was a little weird, but once again they had a section where they at least acknowledge Gumball and just signified that they truly do miss them, which honestly just makes their lives and what they're doing now just seem kind of sad in a way. And they then continue to do this, as in the third episode it literally starts out with Frank not caring about a party Grady and Howdy were about to hold due to the fact that he misses Gumball and Darwin. And even then, when someone who they invite to the party comes over, we see Frank run over to the door with so much excitement, thinking that it was Gumball and Darwin, but then just for it to be this random plain thing, which instantly brings him right back to being in a bad mood, which was honestly pretty sad. But they then carry out this party and Frank starts to sing a song about how he misses Gumball and Darwin and that the party basically doesn't feel like a party without them. But then unexpectedly we see everything start to shake before we then actually hear Darwin's voice say their names. Whether Darwin was coming to the party or not, who knows, but I think either way Frank was at least pretty happy. It's really cool that they actually got to see them return and use that as a form of closure to the semi-ongoing narrative that they were subtly building throughout basically all of the episodes prior. It actually made these episodes pretty captivating and feel way more worth watching. But we still got 2 more episodes following the puppets after this, with the next episode following Frank and Howdy once again fighting, this time over who got to have their household spoon. And in order to decide who gets it, they have a dance battle in which the winner ends up somehow being the keyboard dog. But hearing this, Grady says that if he can't have it, then no one can, and bends the spoon. But being sad about what he had just done, Frank then says he can have one of his other spoons, revealing that he had a whole other box of them. As we then get another short jammy track about spoons as Grady just flies through space and the episode ends. This one was very random and had no subtle plot of Gumball and Darwin in between, but nonetheless was still pretty fun. But the last episode containing the puppets in the series follows Grady, Frank, and Howdy watching TV before realizing that the show that they were watching was extremely boring. And so they decide that they want to make a show of their own, which of course is pretty ironic considering the fact that they are literally in a show themselves. But they then do Grady's idea for a show, which is all about mud. But since Frank and Howdy didn't really want to do that, they just absolutely prank him by covering him in this green goop. As the audience that just exists, I guess, then just starts cheering and Grady is once again happy. Once again, a very random episode, as most of these episodes are, but yeah, these last 2 way more so than the first few, as they just didn't have any narrative or relevance to Gumball and Darwin whatsoever and were just indirectly about the puppets. But the next 8 episodes are, whilst a lot shorter in comparison to all the episodes beforehand, are actually all just fully about Gumball and Darwin, with the next episode following Gumball and Darwin both once again inside of the puppet world and in their puppet animation styles, as Gumball and Darwin then just start rubbing their faces, kind of acknowledging the fact that they are puppets and describing how it feels, saying that it feels peachy and or like the inside of a slipper apparently. But Gumball then adds to the fact that they're rubbing each other's faces extremely intimately and stating how it feels is weird, but of course Darwin just says nah. They had to add at least one moment in here that shows just how freakishly close these two can get sometimes. But the next episode follows them realizing that in this world they can actually just make their hand puppets become hand puppets, as well as those hand puppets also become hand puppets, and those hand puppets also become hand puppets, just literally becoming an infinite loop, which whilst at first seeing this as terrifying, just of course choose to accept it and make the most of it. The next episode follows Gumball sneezing and his mouth flying onto a pineapple who has never had sentience, or maybe has always had sentience and just has never been able to talk, now finally getting a mouth. But Darwin then takes the pineapple and makes the mouth go back onto Gumball. But either way, the pineapple's day is absolutely made, just kind of showing that this is probably the most interesting thing that ever happened in my guy's life, which is honestly pretty sad. But in the next episode, Gumball and Darwin realize that in this world they can also more or less imagine whatever the hell they want and make it a reality. And so Darwin then decides to imagine himself with a beard, and Gumball then also imagines himself with a beard, as well as gives Darwin some red hair saying that it just works, which was pretty funny. But the next episode follows Darwin and actually not Gumball whatsoever, as he drinks this movie and authors it to this plain bird, but as it's unable to drink it due to being a puppet or Darwin just not being able to reach it, I guess, it begins to get upset, which then results in Darwin just splashing the entire drink onto him. And at first they make it seem like he was about to absolutely crash out on Darwin, but then he just says,
refreshing. Oh, anytime.
In the next episode, they once again realize that since they're in a puppet world, which they actually refer to as the imagination land, they can bring anything they want into reality. And this time, instead of giving themselves beards, they actually decide to just spawn in a gnome, which Darwin then names Percy for whatever reason. Gumball then tries to summon something of his own, but then due to the fact that he was now thinking of gnomes, he just continuously spawns even more gnomes, as Darwin just gets happier and happier, which was honestly pretty adorable. But in the next episode, Gumball and Darwin actually wear each other as puppets and begin to more or less mimic each other's voices and how they sound and their perspectives, which at first made them upset, not believing that that's actually how they sound. But eventually, of course, they realized that they were being dumb and apologized, which was pretty wholesome. But in the very last episode of the Waiting for Gumball miniseries, Gumball and Darwin come across a weird purple food in a pot that Gumball apparently always dreams of, and curious as to what exactly it might taste like, Gumball gives it a test and then just starts absolutely tripping as the screen gets these abstract visuals as it begins to also just change colors. But then as Darwin asks what it was like, Gumball just snaps completely back to normal and says, meh. This series is actually just so unreal feeling, mainly because I didn't know of its existence before making this video, but also now even after watching it and making this video, as it's just kind of unexpected that this would be something that would even be made and or even considered to be made. But I guess after the team of Gumball and Don't Hug Me I'm Scared made the episode The Puppets, they just had more creative ideas that they wanted to turn into reality and more of a budget to spend to do so. It's such a fun, artistic and overall creative feeling project, and I honestly wish that we got to see more of it. It would be really cool to see the puppet characters or this puppet world and animation style revisited someday in the new season of the Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball. I feel like that's definitely something that could for sure happen, but it's definitely likely that it won't. But nonetheless, this video was actually super fun to make, so if you want to see me talk about the other Gumball miniseries, the Gumball Chronicles and Darwin's Yearbook, or just take a look at other Gumball episodes I haven't discussed yet in the future, consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel, or even consider joining my Patreon. It shows support and I drop a plethora of extra content over there, from reactions to gaming videos to a bunch of other unseen content that I think you all would really enjoy. But anyways, with that said, that's gonna be the end of the video, so I'll see y'all in the next one, whenever that is.